For the basis of this morning discussions, we start with the wrap up of yesterday, which is Ari, our moderator. Yesterday's moderator is going to take care, and when we have finished with that, we agreed among the PCCB members that we have a small break. Hopefully there is coffee for you, and because PCCB members have to agree about practical issues how to deal with the rest of the day, because apparently we are going to divide into the groups to work in the areas of the work plan. So we have to decide that who is going to attend which group and who is the leader and so on. So the process goes now that we wrap up and take the lessons learned from yesterday. Then we break, and while you are drinking coffee, we are organizing ourselves, and we return as quickly as we can, and then we continue. Maybe first in the plenary format, maybe first in the group format, but that remains to be decided among the PCCB members while you are drinking coffee. Mohammed, any? So now I can hand over to Ari, and once more, thanks a lot for a very good moderating yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you. How long more or less? I mean, do you give me 3 minutes or 5 or?
I think that I give you more, because we have at least, I think, at least an hour.
Okay.
Even more if there is appetite for.
Then bear with me, and I think question and answers. And if I say something provocative, what I'll be talking about is purely from a personal point of view. It's kind of how I perceived yesterday, and it's my personal and professional opinion what I'm going to say. So I think the key issue to keep in mind is the topic. It's about NDCs. It's about implementing NDCs, and it's what the role of PCCB could realistically be in helping in driving and building capacity in developing countries to do so, and all this within its own mandate. We also realized yesterday, and at least I did, that there are so many already mandated processes that are dealing with related topics, and it's really important that the PCCB looks for mechanism to ensure complete complementarities, not only sort of avoiding overlaps, but actually seeking to look for complementarities with the likes of the Durban Forum, which filled in really interesting stuff there, but it's an information sharing forum. How can the Durban Forum influence the topics that we discuss here? I think it's already done it, but how can PCCB then also guide the Durban Forum to focus on areas that it identifies as key priority? And there are other things like tech, and there are many processes that actually dealt with that have done assessments, analyses, inventories, and I think all of these material and resources would be useful to make good use of. To me, the topic boiled down to converting high-level existing NDCs, which are strategic and sometimes 2 pages long, to include investment plans at the country level, but in a manner that does focus on poverty alleviation and inclusive growth or development. To me, that's the all-embracing principle, which I think came very strongly from the presentations of the LDCs, the islands, etc. So that could be a way of narrowing down the focus of this year and next year, as the decision has already been taken that NDCs are the priority, or the area of focus. Then there were the good breakout groups that actually went into quite a lot of details, and I will sort of look at each of these, but I've identified certain broad areas where the PCCB should according to yesterday's discussion, sort of focus on. One broad level is the analysis part, the mapping part. There was a focus on compiling information on capacity building gaps to report back to the COP. For example, through a database which maps the needs in a holistic manner, compilation of available online and other reference materials, establish a task force on specific capacity building issues, provide guidelines on how capacity building needs to be reported in national reports to the convention, including national communications and biennial update reports. So this is the analytical which I think has the really major challenge of PCCB not being in a position to actually start concrete work at the country level. This the modalities of how you actually map, how you analyze, as basically, I would assume, desk-based work somewhere, rather than having resources for going around the countries and filling in questionnaires. Also, it's apparently, I think there's not much appetite to draft some complex research paper and then send it to the focal points or to the governments for yet another filling in exercise, because I think so many of them have been done. So this should be done in an imaginative and innovative way, and I think this is something to be discussed then between the PCCB and the Secretariat, what is possible and what the terms of reference for this will be. But there is clearly a lot of appetite for making an inventory, mapping things, and we got a lot of really useful inputs for this already from the second panel, particularly yesterday, from the developing country representatives, particularly the LDC presentation that had a wealth of detail that actually already articulated some of the challenges the countries are facing. But then, once this analysis has been made, it needs to be articulated and packaged in a way that is easily digestible to those who will need to read it. That means the delegates, the audience. So I think there is a knowledge management task there. These documents are sometimes so theoretical or so technical that it's very difficult to actually fish the action points out of them. So this is, I think, to me, something that shouldn't be forgotten. The process of before it's shared, to actually formulating easily understood synthesis documents and then share them. I think the idea is through the appropriate channels in the COP system, and here I think these are really interesting things to be included. These guidelines about how capacity buildings are reported, if at all. Is there a way of actually including capacity building into national communications in a way that is more or less comparable? And biennial update reports and all that. And also how the likes of TEC, CTCN, GCF, GEF report on capacity building, so that there is a kind of a more or less a common understanding of. I don't aim here at all and at an academic discussion on what is capacity building. That takes us to waters that nobody wants to go, but some sort of general guidelines on how to discuss or catch this better in the absence of an MRV system, because I don't know if it's realistic to accept the OECD DAC or any other institution to actually agree on a capacity building indicator. It's a cross-cutting issue. It's very difficult to capture in statistics. So that this very broad assessment and analysis part is, I think that was kind of one of the blocks from yesterday's breakout groups. Another important thing that came up very clearly is the importance of the sharing part and where to do it. You already have an existing portal. The portal is now basically, it's a very useful portal on information, with information on who is doing what. It's one set of data, and that could be the beginning of a much more complex and interesting platform. There were ideas even, and I don't know if this is possible within resources and mandates, but there were several calls to work on I would call password protected help desk or a conversation forum where national focal points could actually go to a moderated and curated site where they could ask for information, and then that would be provided for them, so that they wouldn't have to just blindly search an open platform, but where they could actually look for inspiration and ideas from other countries and from the participating institutions. This would, of course, getting these sorts of things live and active is always a challenge, and that needs quite a lot of resources, because that would then need a dedicated person somewhere who would actually be able to moderate them, and this is expensive. But otherwise, the portal could easily be expanded to include an awful lot more things that are on it now, and that could be one of the first tasks, to actually form task forces including specific experts and decision makers, and look into other existing portals to link them in an organic way to the portal, so that there would be no duplication, but a clear attempt to actually make good use of the probably hundreds of portals that are already there. In my previous job, I was fighting against a syndrome called portal proliferation syndrome, and that is real, and it's very confusing to institutions. There is a really useful initiative helping to deal with it, and that is the Climate Knowledge Brokers Network, CKB, housed by REAP in Vienna, and that could be one partner to actually really very practically identify their 250 members who are all doing capacity building in climate change, to actually just have the ready-made inventory, which is already there, and harness that to enhance the information that is available from the UNFCCC PCCB portal. That means also then having a good look at the tools. Many people were keen to have tools and guide toolkits and concrete guidance, and so much of it is already done. So I think it's really, again, to make sure that it's now completely, it's known to everybody that they are there and how to use them. And some examples are the NDC Quick Start Guide, which was launched just 2 months ago, which is a very practical online tool that has a basket for finance, basket for policy, basket for sectors, and pilots are being done in a number of countries, Ethiopia, Kenya, and others. Then there's the NDC partnership, who were here yesterday to offer cooperation, and they have already their navigators online. They are all initial attempts for coordination, and none of them answers the problem entirely. And I don't think your portal can answer all the questions in one go either. But it's a very good place to go and have at least buttons for themes, and the buttons that would then lead you to existing services. It narrows down the tremendous work of trying to go do Google searches and put password to search engine words in, and try to make out from the jungle there. So when I look at the discussion points from yesterday's breakout group, It talks about the CB portal, capacity building portal could create a platform for creating partnerships. That's a little bit what I mentioned about the password protected help desk. Virtual space for exchange of information, the same. And then it says here, PCCB can get in touch with governments to collect information on gaps and needs and filter that information. And this is going to be the most complicated and resource intense activity. But this, yeah, and guidelines with steps to go from it's all. I think these two slides from yesterday's breakout groups are actually a very good guide for the PCCB to work on at practical level. So 2 baskets so far. It's the analysis, and the second is the sharing. Then there were a few issues that I think require more consideration, how to actually deal with them. And one is there were lots of good examples and calls for working not only at the national, but also remembering that the subnational level is important, and that cities and counties and provinces and so on are extremely important instruments and partners in delivering NDCs, and can be champions for pilots. And I think Morocco has also been pioneering this, and I think it's something. How much can PCCB actually engage in dealing with that in practice? But I think it's important to remember that they are an important constituency. Mayors of cities, for instance, can be incredibly important, or governors of provinces, important allies in promoting implementation of NDCs, because I think that's in everybody's interest, that we wouldn't only meet our NDC targets, but actually meet them faster. Then there were 2 constituencies or stakeholder groups that came up. One was universities. How do we engage with universities? Do they have a role? Can they actually, because they are an incredibly important repository of knowledge and analytical skills, and can be partners in also the packaging and dissemination work. And then what to do with the private sector, because they are key partners in the results. You cannot have a successful NDC implementation unless your entire business community is behind it and actually is committed to reducing their greenhouse gas emissions. Then a couple of thoughts about modalities. There is clearly I think much of this is, the research is research, and that will need to be carried out by somebody somewhere, either here or desk-based somewhere else, but there needs to be an understanding of how broad and deep it can be. It depends on resources and the willingness. The portal requires an investment, and it requires professional support by ITs, those who actually run portals. But then there is also an opportunity, and the CTCN made a very strong point about the value of regional workshops. That people with similar types of issues and similar problems meeting together can actually very effectively find solutions and share knowledge that is easily absorbed by the others. So at least their experience has been very positive, so I wanted to record that. I also like the word amalgamator. Somebody used that. It's the role of PCCB could be trying to actually make sense of the very broad and complex landscape of capacity building in NDC implementation into a more coherent and easily understood format. And I think perhaps the portal would be the best place for that. But that would then, there was a really very good point also in one of the breakout groups, that it's not only the portals, it's, for instance, these PCCB meetings. They are already a very helpful, motivational and information sharing opportunity for many people. So how best use the time when the PCCB meets? It doesn't meet many times a year, but it should be broader than just a discussion on the formalities and what PCCB is expected to do as a UN body, but also how to actually on the sidelines make sure that the people who gather around it get something more out of it. It's a little bit like the Durban Forum. I met some other people last night and heard very good things about the Durban Forum. It seems to have been something that people appreciate, and it's a useful thing to discuss. So this helps to focus building into a more tangible and coordinated way. Now, these are very initial comments from me so far. Analysis, sharing, subnational, and country coordination. That's another thing that I forgot to mention. Coordination at both international and national level. That seems to have been one of the key items here. Who does it? How does it do? There were good news that many of the NDAs for different institutions like GCF and GEF in most of the countries are now at least the same institution, if not even the same person. So some countries are going in the right direction, but I'm sure that still the technology NDE is different. And again, I'm sure if you will have a capacity building focal point, it's very likely to be yet another institution. And these institutions don't necessarily talk to each other. And we just heard from CTCN that some countries, having had fantastic experience in building capacity and becoming very independent, still seek assistance from new institutions without making any reference to previous help. So there is a kind of opportunism in the air, and whose responsibility it is actually to ensure that this duplication does not happen, and that these institutions at the international level and at the national level are actually synchronized and harmonized. And how much can the PCCB do it in that? I saw that as one of the terms of reference for initially so to find a mechanism to do it is key, and the portal's not the place for it. That needs to be done in some other way, and the portals, of course, it increases transparency, and therefore it helps identify the players in the game, and then it's likely that some key players are not forgotten if they're all transparently kind of portrayed and the information on them is available on the portal. I don't think I will continue a monologue much longer. I think this is a start, and let me interfere when I or ask me for further details and ideas when the discussion goes on. But I hope this helps. Thank you.
Thank you, Ari. So there we have from yesterday, and also from Ari's personal views, which are based on a huge and long experience on the issues dealing with the capacity building in the climate change issues. So now I open the floor for comments and views, general comments and views, and then, as I told in the beginning, we are going to have a little break, and for the PCCB to discuss among ourselves that how we proceed for the rest of the day. But the floor is open now for comments and questions and so on.
Thank you very much, dear Chair, and good morning, everybody. Ari, thank you very much for the reviewing and making some sort of summary and conclusions of yesterday's talk and discussions. I would like to emphasize one of the two parts of your speech. First is related to the analysis mapping, what we have to do, and under this I'd like to highlight the BUR case. And what I would like to say about this, when the non-Annex 1 parties started to develop the BUR under the guidance of the CCC, it had an absolutely different approach, and I think it is a sort of transformative phase for these countries. And during the ICA process, we saw that most of countries consider this as an opportunity to show to the world about the gaps and capacity needs they want to have. Currently, the cooperation between the TTE members and the parties are quite positive in terms of the all of them have some kind of expectations of the summary reports, and I think that if we could somehow keep that soul and even encourage the parties, that summary report has already elaborated some kind of capacity needs, what country has accepted from the TTE, and somehow this capacity needs translated into our analysis and give some kind of promotion to the parties to have a world acceptance of this. It would, I think, it would be one of the beneficiary work from our side. And second one, I will also would like to address the portal. I fully agree with you that is useful, and on the other hand, I also see the strong threat when we are filling the additional information. We do not want to lose its fullness, usefulness. So one of the case what they at the beginning of this year happened. It was a meeting under the MRB partnership in Berlin, and the team has introduced a sort of interesting approach. They called this clinic case. And it was pretty interesting in terms of the parties, where the parties had an opportunity to represent their gaps and barriers under the MRV system development. And the audience has an opportunity to make a comment and give the recommendation of the these barriers. So this is something that might be what you just said, the passport protecting space under the portal can be kept in terms of since the NDC implementation, it's will just robust, and it will have its own cycles, and countries also need to have a reports on this, how they are implementing their NDCs. So I think that would be a lot of questions and lots of barriers for different countries how to solve this. So if the portal give the floor or window for the parties to discuss about the problems and barriers, and if the PCCB can agree some kind of clustering these barriers to make it easier to the customer who is going to the web portal to have identify easily where to go when he wants to talk about his barriers, would be beneficiary, I think. So that would be my comment and a little bit prolongation of your speech. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Koveri. Any other comments? Yes, CTCN.
Thank you, Matti, and good morning, everyone. I just wanted to share one experience from the CTCN, and where the CTCN intended to make a library of best available technologies related to the work of technology transfer. That task deemed to be too grand for the resources of the CTCN and very, very complicated to set up in a useful and way and to maintain it. So we have actually chosen to reduce our efforts and not use any more resources on the library for best available technologies. So I just wanted to share that experience with you. Thank you.
Thank you. May I ask on the bodies present here that have you analyzed the NDCs and have you in your if you have done the analysis, have you in any extent identified the gaps and needs for the capacity building? So can we start from Leg?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the leg, we are not analyzed now the NDCs, but most of LDCs, INDCs are focused on adaptation components. So we have a needs on gaps on adaptation, which I present yesterday. Is the same needs on gaps because all of our LDC, INDCs is focused on adaptation needs. Thanks.
Thank you. Standing Committee of Finance.
We have not looked at the capacity building needs in NDCs. That hasn't been a focus of the SCF.
Thank you very much. As explained yesterday, tech is not yet directly involved in the capacity development NDC itself, but we have been working for the technology assessment, technology needs assessment, and then plans. Those experience is very useful to apply to the process of the NDC implementation because the technology needs assessment have several steps and some methodologies. And for example, we have to set some kind of organizational structures to start to needs assessment. And then we have to identify the priority sectors and technologies, then identify the barriers, and then identify the enable environment further. And so this kind of steps and methodologies are very useful to start to analyze and support to implement NDC. So this year, some work plan is includes the how to link the TNA and TAP approach to apply to NDC implementation. So maybe you can share some of the information this year to some extent. Thank you.
Thank you. That sounds very, very helpful. And CG?
Okay, thank you, Chair. I wanted to share with you, it's not only the CG work, but also national circumstances on developing countries. We cannot have good INDCs if countries cannot be able to track the national inventories and to try to project what can be the possibilities to reduce them or to stabilize emissions. and there is a very big gap and capacity building needs on that issue. We all agree that we are trying to have these mitigations effort in developing or in all countries. But we have very big problem with capacity building on this issue. I don't know what kind of collaborations we can have between CGE or Paris Committee capacity building in order to try to address or to fix these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Have I missed any? CTCN, okay.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We have looked at the indices for LDCs and SIDS in particular to start with. The issue is that some of the indices are in itself rather vague. It is therefore difficult to assess the capacity building needs related to technology, but we have chosen to look closer at 10 to 11 LDCs in our incubator program. So there we have addressed the capacity building needs, and we are happy to share that analysis with you if you would like that. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely, we like that. So, if I understand right, that in the technology side, we already have some work done, and if not yet done, it's under the way. So, so I think that PCCB is very happy to see those results, but from the side of the other bodies, do I expect that you are going to do in the near future anything which is directly helpful for us? But in any case, we are of course we have a common challenge, but apparently, Standing Committee of Finance.
Well, I guess one thing that I should have said as well is that even though we don't analyse the NDCs for capacity building needs, our biennial assessment and overview of climate finance flows did have some recommendations and identified some capacity gaps, which I referred to yesterday. And if you like, the biennial assessment and overview is one of our mandated outputs where we can look at issues such as that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I think that's something that please share with us. And then we already heard heard from Kagaberi about URs and CGE. I don't think that we in this group are the right ones to finally make any recommendations for the upgrading of the guidelines for reporting, but still we might have some thoughts, and I think that would be important to work with CGE on that, at least for the developing country reports. Okay, colleagues, I don't see any other requests for the floor. So I'm not sure whether there is coffee yet, but sorry.
I'm Marilyn Averill from the University of Colorado, and I just want to point out that there are a lot of NGOs who are doing different kinds of analyses, and some of the constituencies might be able to help you find some of those studies. For example, I'm aware of a study by a law and governance program coming out of Canada that has gone through the NDCs and analyzed them to figure out which ones had law-related issues connected to them. And the idea is, it wasn't really a capacity building needs assessment, but it's the first start saying what are the areas where capacities are needed. And their intention is to go through and try to fill gaps and figure out just, what kinds of legal instruments might be useful to parties who have law-related issues in their NDCs. But as I say, the constituencies could probably help you identify some of those existing studies that are out there. Thank you.
Thank you. It would be very useful if you could share it with us. And as Ari already said, that there is in the universe a lot of things already, but we should be aware of that what is there, and we should utilize it as effectively as possible. So the colleague from the Pacific, please.
Oh, that one. Okay. So, yeah, my name's Sarah Hemstock. I'm from Pacific Community SPC. We've done capacity assessments on sustainable energy in 15 different PACP countries. So it's not, we've looked at generation capacity and renewable energy mix. So it's not a massive leap to change that into NDCs and look at capacity building for that. And also, you've mentioned university sector in your outcomes. Vocational sector and colleges is where most of your technicians are going to be trained for actually achieving your NDCs. So you need to get that sector in there as well. Thanks.
Thank you. And well, we already had something on paper here, but please send also in an electronic form. Yes, Tech.
Thank you very much. I'd like to just address one area which is very important for NDC. Again, the financing issues, the access to the international and bilateral public fund is very important. But otherwise, other areas, the private sector financing. And last year, the G20 20 in China, the green finance is one of the very important area to address, and how to mobilize the local green financing to address the green investment, including climate adaptation and mitigation. And so how to mobilize this, how to address the private sectors and finance sectors go into that area is very important. I mean, I think some kind of a change of mind and change of behaviors by the institutions, for example, and the private sector is very, very important. So we need some kind of a capacity development for the local financial institutions or the industries, the associations to shift to that area. And some kind of capacity building is very useful. And maybe it is done by the country by country, but some kind of, the international guidance would be very effective, I guess. So that area is maybe important to be focused on the PCC, for example.
Thank you. And Secretariat just reminded that, as a matter of fact, on Monday, there will be a workshop on long-term finance. So I think that it's important for us to attend and see that what we can learn from there. Now I can't see any other requests for the floor. So now we have a break. It's a bit uncertain how long it is. I would think that about half an hour, but it depends that how quickly we can settle our practical issues among the PCCB members. So that if there is not yet coffee, there will be soon coffee, and we will see each other very soon. And the PCCB members, we go to 21st floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear colleague. Unfortunately, the PCCB is the view that some of the work related to its work plan would have to be conducted in a close sitting in order to allow for the technical work to the PCCB to be progressed. That's why, therefore, the PCCB would now resume its work in a closed session, and we would like observer to return at 3 p.m. We hope for your understanding this is working modality in the line with the role and procedure of the PCCB member. The Secretariat has published the draft work plan that the PCCB will be working on over the next few hours on the PCCB website. Observers are invited to provide any comment they might have on this draft via mail to the Secretariat before 2 p.m. I would now like to close the session to observer and hope to see you at 3 p.m. Thank you very much for your understanding. Yes, thank you.
Colleagues, if you wait still for a second, so Secretariat will put this work plan on the wall, on the screen, and here are also hard copies. So just to repeat what my co-chair just said, that the PCCB agreed that it's best now that among ourselves we go through this. It's actually what we already looked at the day one. And the day one we had the 2 tables, and now the Secretariat has prepared a hybrid of these 2 tables. So there is our mandates, and then there is proposed actions. And then there is a timetable, and the timetable is sort of priority thing that we should look at those things which are most urgent or possibly easy to do, because then we can easily do them in the first place, and then the PCCB is now going through this by each mandate item, seeing that what is our opinion, what should be the actions and outcomes. But in order to give you a possibility to help us this work, we give it to you virtually. So you can send your comments as quickly as possible, but latest by 2, because we are planning to have our work ready by 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock, we will again give this table on the wall, and there you see that what is PCCB's opinion about the activities and outcomes of each of our mandates. And we will hear your feedback on that. But after a while of discussing that, what would be the best way of get our work ready by 6 o'clock today, we agreed that this is the way how to proceed. So please find this work plan in the website. Here are some hard copies, and go to your laptops and send us your feedback and your ideas, that what could be the urgent issues, what could be the issues with the PCCB could address within its work plan. I hope we managed with my co-chair to explain our working mode, and so we have another room, but it's much more uncomfortable than this one. So we decided to work in a closed mode in this room. So sorry. Have some coffee and chocolate if on the way out, but for your understanding. Sorry, it's the paper copies are only for the members. Yes, quick question.
Yes, it's actually on the PCCB website containing the documents of the meeting. So it is available here when you go to, so let's just enter. So this is the main page of the capacity building website. You go to Paris Committee on Capacity Building, meetings and documents. And then under the first meeting, under item 5, you have the draft work plan.
And excuse me, if I may inquire as to whom or what email address comments should be directed?
Yes, that's the PCCB mail account, which is, I think, CFCB / PCCB, the whatever. Yes, I'll try to put it on the screen. Sorry. CFCB _PCCB @ccc.int.
Sorry, it's on. Yeah.
Sorry. That's the right website, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good.